Hello and welcome to the Causery. This is your host Val Molina, and today's topic is going to be a pretty controversial one. We're going to talk about narcissistic personality disorders and how that affects just dynamics within your family, within your friend group, just in general, in the workplace. Again, disclaimer, all of these you know opinions, accounts, information are going to be provided through research, interviews, information that we've acquired. We are not medical doctors. We are not diagnosing anyone. Just simply sharing the information that's out there, sharing why this is such a big topic, and giving you some tips on how to essentially identify this type of behavior uh, within your family, within your friends, within your workplace, and just how to better handle the situation. So let's get into it. So, what is a narcissist, right? Ooh. So, according to the Mayo Clinic, narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition in which a person, right, has like an unreasonable high sense of self, essentially. Um, so, where is the line where this can become a little bit difficult to manage as someone who has a narcissist in their life? So we're going to discuss that, as well as, things that can help you identify them. Um, Again, these are just our accounts information. So, of course, I always encourage everyone to do their own research. So, essentially, it takes a long time to identify whether somebody could potentially be a narcissist in your life. It isn't something that I think society was trained about, or had even heard of, honestly, until recently. That all of this information, not only on personality, is attributed to like a narcissistic type of personality, but other personality disorders that impact your ability to truly connect with people and have healthy relationships, right? Because that's the ultimate goal, to try and make sure that as many relationships in your life are positive, which will then reinforce a positive sense of self. So, show me who you're with, and I'm going to show you who you are, right? That kind of behavior. So, let's talk about narcissistic parents first. Let's talk about the family nucleus and kind of how that works. Um, so a child can be born to one or more than one narcissistic parent. Are narcissists born narcissists? No, not at all. From what we understand, this is created by a series of trauma, childhood trauma, that essentially hasn't been managed or dealt with or healed, that then essentially leads to this type of behavior. Uh, when you are a child of a narcissistic parent, um, you're gonna fall into a situation where, especially if you have more siblings, your parent is going to categorize you, right? So the biggest I guess categories are your golden child, which is the child that does absolutely everything right, can never do anything wrong. Then you're gonna have your scapegoat, which is the child that could never do anything right, which is the complete opposite spectrum. And then you're going to have that lost child, which is, the child that can fill either spot of the scapegoat or the golden child, depending on, you know, the narcissistic needs of the parent and how well the child is behaving to towards the parent, essentially how well the child is following the parents rules, give or take. So, you know, I have seen this play out in several families, and it's very difficult to understand what's happening, when you're a child, when this is happening to someone during their infancy, or early adulthood, right? It's difficult to identify, especially if you haven't done the research, and it kind of leads to a lot of questions of, you know why do I have this type of relationship with my parent, or what's going on? Why is I feel like something's missing, it's not right. How come, you know Sally's mom is this way and my mom is not that way, or my dad, or you know narcissistic parents do not see their children as separate entities, as people with goals, feelings, or emotions. In a nutshell, they more or less see them as an extension of themselves, and therefore uh, feel this need to control the child, even into adulthood. You can see this by the parent using different tactics that are essentially going to be somewhat abusive mentally and emotionally towards the child, um, such as using silent treatment, not being there for the emotional needs of the child. Then, this essentially makes the child become hyper vigilant, right? The child is going to begin to look out for this type of behavior because they want to avoid it at all cost, which then leads to people pleasing, um, which can stay with someone through their adulthood and can definitely have a major impact on their life when, you're so worried about what's going to happen if someone gets upset with your actions or behavior, that all you want to do is please them. It could really get you into some serious trouble. Do I think narcissistic parents know what they're doing? Not all the time. Do they know, how to stop? Not necessarily. Again, this is something that has recently made its way to the surface, essentially, um, in mainstream media. And I think it's an opportunity for people to begin to educate themselves about the topic so that you can have the opportunity to identify whether someone in your life could potentially be a narcissist and how that's affecting you personally. So, having a narcissistic parent as an adult kind of looks like your parent only praising your accomplishments, or praising you as long as you're accomplishing things and making them look good, right? You want to remain being that positive influence that's going to make them look like, wow, they really raised a great, high performing person. So, supply is when they are getting praise, admiration, love, attention, etc. And all of their toxic behavior is essentially being ignored. Uh, Once the narcissist isn't getting that supply, it's pretty easy for them to discard of that person, uh, even if that person is their child. They have a different way of processing feelings and emotions, and a lot of their feelings and emotions are tied into their narcissistic mindset. So now let's talk a little bit about how can you identify that in a friend, right? Uh, a big indicator is going to be something called love bombing. If you meet somebody, they have no idea who you are. Out of nowhere, they're just like, oh my God, you're so amazing. You're magnetic. You're incredible. Oh, let's hang out. Let's do this. Let's do that. They're essentially telling you what they think is what you want to hear, that's going to make you say, wow, this person sees me for who I am, or etc. However, this is actually a tactic to kind of make you fall in love with them, right? They want to be super charming. They want to entice you. They want to rope you in so that you can become a supply. Because once you're under their spell, that's when the nails come out, and you'll be a little bit more inclined to stay and deal with it, because, you know, they're giving you something in return, right? So obviously you're giving the narcissist this ego boost, right? But they like to try and isolate people and make them feel as though they cannot live without them. This is how they kind of keep their supply. Once a person, I guess, kind of figures out what's going on and tries to break loose, then you're no longer of use to that person, to the narcissist. And it's not uncommon for them to completely cut ties and discard you, even if you're their child, you know, as well as even if you're their friend. This is something that happens often in friend groups. Let's say, you were the bigger girl, and you had a narcissistic friend, and you hung out with her because you were completely devoted to her. You thought she was the coolest person ever, and she was not nice, and often would make you feel bad about your appearance. But you kind of dealt with it because just being with her was cool, right? Just it kind of gave you points. Let's say you go on Ozempic and you start losing weight. It is possible that this narcissist might change with you, especially if you start changing. If you say, well, I can go out by myself, with other friends. I don't have to do this for you, Becky, or whatever the case might be. You're no longer going to be the same type of supply. So another thing to look out for, you see, narcissism is unfortunately embedded in the fabric of society. You're gonna essentially run into this type of behavior in the family, friend groups, and unfortunately also in the workplace. There have been a ton of testimonies of people who have had narcissistic bosses, and it's essentially been their worst nightmare, which I can agree. It must be a really difficult situation when your livelihood is literally tied to keeping someone happy, right? Especially nowadays where we have a lot of hybrid working schedules, a lot of remote working schedules. Visibility is limited. Sometimes your leadership, your direct management, is going to be the end all be all, at least for your lifeline in XYZ company. So how do you deal with something like that, right? How do you've identified it, you've done your own research, you've listened to the causerie, you listened to your host Val, you kind of picked up a couple skills and ideas and information from the episode. So now oh my God, my boss is a total narcissist. What am I going to do? Here's what you're going to do. You have to essentially have the understanding that when you're dealing with this person, you're not going to be dealing with someone who doesn't have a personality disorder, right? You have to first accept the fact that no, this person isn't like you, and they are not going to treat you the way that you necessarily want to be treated. So, the way to deal with the situation is just to try to be as specific and direct. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't overcompensate. Stop being of supply. You know, do your work, and that's it. But it might get to the point where you might want to consider, speaking to someone about it, or even potentially finding somewhere else to work, unfortunately. But usually, when the narcissist kind of knows that you're onto them, especially in a workplace setting, and you do what you gotta do, you stop it with the people pleasing, you stop being kind of a supply for that person, and they kind of accept what you are and just find a new supply, which is the best outcome in this particular scenario. So, you've identified now that your parents might have been narcissistic, or your best friend, or your boss. You start to connect the dots and see how that's kind of played into your life, right? You're now in your healing era, so how can you take, what steps, better yet, can you take to begin healing, begin educating yourself? And I guess I'll share a little bit about myself. I have dealt with, potentially narcissistic, among other personality disorders, within my family as well. And I've also had a period where I embarked in a healing journey, and I did a lot of self-reflection. A lot of humans, we hold a lot of trauma in our body, So sometimes you'll see someone who has gained a ton of weight, right? For example, this is an example. And believe it or not, every ounce of trauma could potentially be trapped in their body, kind of attributing to the hormonal imbalance or eating disorder or whatever the case might be that led to the weight gain. So it's kind of like a mind, body, soul thing that you have to kind of embark on, as well as getting the proper help and information that you're going to need to heal. Another thing that you're going to have to understand is that this journey might be very lonely. You might be the only person in your family who has came to this realization and has embarked on this healing journey. You have to also come to the realization that your relationship with the person who was narcissistic in your life, whether this is, specifically referring to the family and friend scenario, may not realize that there was even an issue. They might not be ready to have that conversation, or if they have the conversation, not ready to accept the possibility that their behavior was having this type of impact on you. So yes, it can be very isolating. However, I always say, if you want to live a happy, fulfilling life, it has to start from within, right? Your thoughts create your actions or generate your actions, and your actions become your reality. So everything has to be internal first, so that then you can externally see the fruits. So my additional advice would be to, of course, when you embark on this healing journey, it's not going to be a one shoe fits all. Some people are going to need to have medical assistance in terms of having therapy, or maybe working with a doctor to help you heal the physical piece, or whatever the case might be. I know there's a stigma, as well as, well, there used to be a major stigma, and I'm very happy that things have changed. But seeing a mental health professional or a therapist, or just talking to someone about what you're going through is a great, great way to heal. Sometimes you just have to let out what you've got going on inside. You need to share it with someone, and they can kind of, with the right professional, they can help you kind of decipher, what's been going on. And you can have a ton of aha moments. Okay, that makes sense now. I see, but you have to do the work. And you also have to understand that sometimes those relationships are never going to get repaired. And it's unfortunate, especially if it's a parent or a special family member, or a dear friend. But I want to honestly believe that it's important for you to do this healing work and save yourself. Save yourself, because you have to take care of yourself, and the only person that can do that accurately, the most accurately, is going to be you. Only you can love you, right? You have to be in love with yourself, as selfish as that sounds, so that then, you can be the best version of yourself for those you love, right? So those are, that's all we've got today, folks. So if you have any, insight or comments or opinions, leave a comment, or, shoot us an email. We love to hear from you guys. Again, this is all just from my perspective, our perspective. This is your host, Val Molina. Thanks for having me. Take care.